Good afternoon. We'll call to order the February 2nd Board of Zoning Adjustment regular meeting. We'll start with a
Oh,
roll.
sorry. Drew Goodner,
Here.
Frost Rollins,
Here.
Amy Sorrells,
Here.
Kim White,
Here.
Marty Heffron,
Here.
Letitia Khalif,
Here.
Mary Boyd.
Here.
All right. Does anyone have any comments on the meeting from January 5th? I was absent then.
No, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from January 5th, 2022.
Second.
Drew Goodner,
Yes.
Frost Rollins,
Yes.
Amy Sorrells,
Yes.
Kim White,
Yes.
Marty Heffron,
Yes.
Letitia Khalif,
Yes.
Mary Boyd.
Yes.
All right. I'm going to read an opening statement. Any persons aggrieved by any decision of the board may within 15 days after such decision appeal to the circuit court having jurisdiction according to section 908.02 of the zoning ordinance of the city of Auburn, Alabama. For old business, we have PL 2021-00776. I believe, Kim, you're going to recuse yourself, and Letitia, you will be voting on this one.
Okay.
Good afternoon. Okay, this is a request from ST Holdings LLC. The request is a variance to allow a mural when they are not allowed within the city limits. Section 604 prohibited signs states that murals are prohibited. And just to give y'all a little bit of more information about murals, I'll give you the definition. It's under section B within your ordinance, in your staff report, but I will read that aloud. A mural is defined as a sign that consists of graphics or a work of art that is painted, drawn, or applied to an exterior wall, does not depict or contain advertising, logos, or images of a product, service, or business, and is a representation of a creative idea that is expressed in a form and manner as to primarily provide aesthetic enjoyment for the viewer rather than to specifically convey a commercial message. The mural is located on a building along Opelika Road at 1415 Opelika Road. Beds Express, they have occupied that location since 2011. The mural began work back in the fall, and we were notified, city staff was notified of the mural. So they, inspection services went out to the location, and the mural was still being painted. It was finally complete at the end of September, I believe. And we worked with the applicant on telling him if he wanted to get a variance to try to apply, to get the sign, he could apply for such. And we received the application. The meeting was postponed in December and January. And the mural does not satisfy the requirements of a variance. So we do recommend denial. And should the board allow the variance to approve, you guys must make that decision that the mural meets each criteria of the of the variance requirements. The applicant is here, and we did receive a couple of correspondence on the case, and both were in favor of allowing the mural. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
I'm aware of a few murals around Auburn. I know they have been here a while. There's not many.
There are not. Those that are present
Prior to 2010. correct?
were,
Right.
yes, yep.
And obviously, y'all have a reason why you don't like murals, and I guess there's...
I don't know that it's we don't like
don't
murals.
like them, but I mean, if there's a reason it's in there.
I do not know the reason.
Okay.
Yep. It was put into the zoning ordinance in 2010 in conjunction with the downtown study committee, I believe, or the Urban Core Task Force, one or the other, when they were discussing downtown regulations.
So they can paint the building. But it can't have drawings or lettering on it.
Correct. Yep.
I have a question. Can
Sure.
you repeat the last thing you said? If we approve the mural,
Right.
we would have to do, can you repeat that, please?
Sure. You need to make sure that the request meets the criteria as spelled out within your staff report.
Okay, gotcha.
I have just a general question.
Sure.
While it does not okay, I want to go on record as saying I love art. I have a child in art school. I have no problem with this in theory. My question comes down to there are significant logos, not only associated with the university, that clearly have to go through some sort of trademarking process. So I would think that the university would take umbrage with this, number one. I don't know what we have on that. Number two, there are two very distinct logos of businesses that I can tell. So while it's not advertising them, it is, I mean, I could see that being advertising. So I just am curious, or three actually, I guess with tumors, but
Correct.
I'm just curious how we're getting around saying that's not advertising.
Because the definition contain advertising, logos, images, products.
It says it does not depict, so right there.
But there's
it
something
does
else,
Correct.
depict.
But
there's something
it's-
else in the zoning ordinance that prohibits advertising a separate business that's not located on that site. So
Thank
this
you, Drew.
violates
Yes.
both of them?
Okay.
That is
Okay.
correct.
We'll get to you in a little bit. Okay.
And we don't know where the university stands on this?
The university has reached out, and they do have some issues with the use of their property.
Mark logos, yes.
And I believe they are getting in touch with the applicant.
Okay.
As far as the other businesses identified in the mural, we have not heard from them.
Thank you, Katie.
Well, I have a question actually about the, I know that this was brought up in a lot of community chatter over this issue, references to a public art initiative. And so I just wanted to ask you to speak on that and
Sure.
where you are with that and what happened with it.
Yeah, so back over the summer, we did have a work session with the planning commission to discuss murals. And the allowance of murals kind of morphed into a bigger project of a public art initiative and creating a public art commission. Now, that entails approval by the council and creation of another board or commission. So that was a little out of our wheelhouse to say that a commission needed to be formed to approve the murals, but that was just one option in order to allow murals. So it could be, each mural could be vetted, how much of a building could be covered with a mural, different criteria of what we think should be controlled for the mural.
Do you anticipate that would then have to come back and get a variance or go through this process? Like once that went through that commission and would they then have to come to us, or that would
No,
eliminate
that
the
that
need for a
would
variance?
that would allow
Okay.
murals. The prohibition 604F would then be removed from the
Okay.
zoning ordinance. But after that meeting in June or July, I can't remember when that occurred, we have not met on the subject since. So
Is that because there wasn't interest in the city or?
we had other pressing items that needed to get rolling.
Resource allocation?
But it hasn't gone away. We just haven't picked back up on it.
Is there an intention or timeline to do so?
Nothing has been brought up yet.
So for clarification, so this project was started, this mural was started under the guise of another initiative? Not true?
No,
Okay.
no. They did not reach out to us to ask if it was allowed.
Okay,
It began, we received a complaint. Inspection Services went out and checked, and yes,
okay,
there was a mural.
thank you.
Any other questions?
Thank you, Katie.
The applicant is present.
All
Got
right.
any questions?
The applicant like to come up and speak? If You'll sign in right there if you don't mind. Thank you.
So I was not really, I didn't really know what I was going to be needing, like questions that were going to be asked or anything like that. So y'all feel free to shoot those at me. I didn't ask for permission ahead of time or anything like that. My bad on the assumption that I could paint a mural on the side of our own building. But we tried to stay away from specifically anything that could be construed as advertising for our business. Little, I guess, backstory to Mama G's and Chicken Salad Chick is purely those are like quintessentially Auburn. Have a previous relationship with Chicken Salad Chick, and so if it comes down to I just need to remove those logos, I can figure out something else to put in the U. So just to go ahead and put that out there. Same thing with, I guess, Tumors Drugs does also that is not the. I wish there was there you go. So Tumors is also on there. Again, quintessentially Auburn. It's Tumors Corner. That's part of Auburn's tradition. You know what I mean? There was no intention of advertising. I did not even ask Mama G's or Chicken Salad Chick for permission. It's not their full logos. I don't know if you could argue that or not. The stadium, Auburn logos on there, sure. But again, just part of the community. So if we need to modify that, it is easily done. In fact, Chris Davis's helmet originally did not, I think in this picture it did not have an Auburn logo on it, but he came back and he made a mistake and left that off, so he's actually added that back on. But y'all want to shoot me any questions? Because I'm really not sure what I'm supposed to say here.
No, you're fine. I mean, I think I think it does look great. I don't particularly
have a
have
problem
issues
with
with murals,
yeah.
but it's something that's in direct violation of the ordinance. And in my opinion, if you were coming before us and it hadn't been done yet, it would absolutely be denied. I don't like the forgiveness scenarios. I know you didn't do it on purpose, but it's something that it's a compound effect. I think
Yeah.
it's something that maybe city council or planning takes up and looks at. It's not. I don't love when things like this fall under our purview to go. There's not really any gray area here, in my
Right.
opinion. So maybe it's something they take up. I think the ones that are around town look nice versus just a basic brick wall building, but
Right.
that's my view on it.
That's more attractive than crepe myrtles.
It is.
More crepe myrtles down.
I don't disagree, and I wish that was what we were looking at. But
And there's one thing that I wanted to toss out was, Shrimp Basket was approved. That's the only other one apparently that has come after 2010 as far as I know. Shrimp Basket does have, you could say it was advertising because it's an eagle with a shrimp in its claws. I mean, you could technically say that's advertising, and this has absolutely zero anything that could be construed as advertising for Beds Express.
yeah. What has the university said? Because I know they are very specific.
I haven't. Katie mentioned that. I have not heard from them.
The logo, the Sanford Hall.
I have not
You've even
gotten a letter from.
you've got the lathe on there.
Yeah.
Yep, I thought that was cool. That was unique. That's something that somebody else would probably not put on a mural because it's kind of hidden behind a bunch of bushes. We all know that. So anyway, thought that was neat.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you.
Thanks.
We'll open up the public hearing if anyone would like to speak in favor of or against this variance request.
I didn't come up.
Yeah, come up and sign in and speak, please.
Hey, how y'all doing?
Doing well, how are you?
I think it's pretty awesome that our community has to have meetings to decide on something so, good looking and kind of could be a, future staple in the community for people to take pictures at. I don't know if any of y'all follow social media at all, but I know that if you're following the What Happens on Auburn Opelika page right now, there's hundreds and hundreds of comments in support of keeping this mural because of how many people have already come to town, taken pictures of it. It's already becoming part of a staple of our community in town. There's no moral, ethical, or any reason why we should have to take this mural down, in my opinion. There was one complaint, if I understand, versus the hundreds of comments and support that has come along following that, including the people that were willing to show up to the meeting and speak for it tonight, against the people who were not willing to show up and speak against it. To me, if it's an issue between the university and the trademark, that needs to be handled between the applicant and the university and the trademark. If we're making a decision on what's right and what's wrong, what justifies an exception, if there's any reason somebody should be offended by this or in any way it should be wrong, then I understand that. But there's no way you can argue that this mural goes against any justification for morals, ethics, or being offensive to any group or any body of persons. So to me, I think if there's something that justifies the exception for the rule, we need to look at that versus having an absolute no before we do this. If there's stuff that needs to be removed, let's work with the applicant to keep another trademark in Auburn, a staple where somebody can come and take pictures, hashtag it, make it part of the community. So to me, it adds a lot to the community. I think you'll see a heck of a lot more support for it than you do not. So any questions I can answer? Thank you all for your time.
Mr. Chairman, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
I know that both of the speakers did sign in, and we'll have their name for the record later on, but it might be nice.
Yeah.
Normally, you
Oh,
go ahead
yeah.
and you
Oh,
announce
sorry.
your name and your address.
Never done this before, so.
Yeah, that's okay.
I'm Craig Miller. I live here in Auburn. We live on Annaluse, so.
Okay.
Born and raised here, so parents been living here since the 70s. They're here as well. But, full support of what the Auburn community means. And I think that the murals that we do have become staples, just like the businesses that are represented in this. And if there's a problem with the business, and the business has a problem with their logo being on here, then I think they need to take that up with the applicant as well.
All right.
Thank you.
I will add, and I can't remember if I mentioned this when I presented, the university and the businesses noted in the mural, their disallowance or, not wanting them to use their logos has no bearing on what is in the zoning ordinance.
Right. Thank you. All right. We will,
Anyone else?
anybody else got anything? We will,
Chairman, if I could just make a comment or two, based on all the discussion that we've heard so far tonight. Just want to reiterate really a lot of what's already been said by staff, which is that, we didn't enter into this discussion and consideration of this request based on whether we like the artwork or the mural, whether it looks attractive or unattractive. Really, it doesn't enter into the conversation. I think most people here, no one's offended by the graphic per se. It's a matter of, what are the laws that the city has passed that applies to this type of image and it being a mural, and whether we allow or don't allow murals in the city of Auburn is a decision for the city council ultimately to make. And it's one that would require an amendment to the zoning ordinance, going through the planning commission to the city council and having them adopt a change. Those types of changes are always possible, and so that would be the proper relief in my opinion. The fact that maybe a variance was approved in the past for some other business in town would not set a precedent that would control your decision here tonight. You would make a decision based on the facts before you this evening. And Katie already mentioned the applicability or unapplicability of the city's responsibility tonight with regard to Auburn University logos or trademarks and things of that nature. That's not something that you need to consider either. I just want to make those comments, and if again, you have any questions for any of us, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will close the public hearing and open up to the board for discussion and/or a motion.
Well, I'd like to go on record as saying I too like the mural, and I'm a fan of murals in general and public art in general. And I think it's important, whether it's this issue or another item that comes before the BZA or the Planning Commission or wherever, that there is some initiative within the city to address those. And hopefully it doesn't quit coming up, because I do think that things like this and other public art adds to our place. I don't think anyone disagrees with that. I feel I'd like us to go through these measures one by one if we can, because if that's what we need to do to pass it or deny it, then I just want to make sure we're all clear on why it's approved or denied. So that the people who have talked about this, on social media and have contacted me personally and or have feel justified or feel like they understand the reason for the decision one way or another. Anyone else?
No, I agree with everything you said. Like, it's not an issue of the public art. I'm hesitant to make a ruling on this and then have city council, I know we can't do that, but have planning commission and city council come back and say, oh, we're gonna allow this, and we've asked him to cover it up. Like, that's where my hesitation lies. And I know a lot of time, effort, money has gone into this. I think it's beautiful and adds to the enjoyment. I know other cities do this very successfully. I think it's a little short-sighted of Auburn as a city to not embrace these types of things. I also, on the flip side of that, can see that if we just start allowing murals, God only knows what's gonna end up on the side of every building. So there's gotta be some sort of oversight. And what we're here now to decide is,
Yeah, does it fit the requirements for a
Fit the
variance?
requirements, yeah.
And I think we can read through them, and it doesn't, I don't think there's anything that it applies that makes it eligible for one. I think everybody does like the mural and how it looks, but. Do we need it?
So Drew, I got a question. So what's the recourse? Let's say the vote happens, it's not in favor of the mural because of the zoning. What can these
Yeah,
guys do
they can
next?
appeal it to the circuit court, but I think ideally is what they would do is try to talk to city council and planning and get something changed. And then if it changes, our ruling doesn't prevent them from keeping it. I think they've got other avenues. I just don't think it falls under our purview for us to, and that's my opinion, to change
we
it.
unfortunately can't make the rules. We just have to enforce what's
That's
already
true.
written. And we did not make these variances. So I have seen the social media. I agree wholeheartedly with every person's opinion on that, like I said before. But our hands are somewhat tied to the fact that the variance exists for a reason that I understand and understand quite clearly. And I'm sure even the applicant would understand that and can appreciate why those things are set in place. But
That's absolutely correct. And Mr. Foote did provide you with the way that it would be allowed within the ordinance. It would have to go through the council by way of an amendment to the zoning ordinance that would start with the planning commission and then work its way up to city council.
was this part, okay, so I know that happened in June. This did not start until September. So city council, this is not on their radar at all, or in planning commission or anybody's radar, correct?
Planning commission, it has not been brought up again since our work session in June or July. It was mentioned last night at the council meeting.
We have a record of what the comments were on that.
I do not recall exactly.
The comments were that I think one of the council members, asked about murals and art and suggested that they take a look at that, and so we'll be, responding to that request and accordingly and so forth.
Thank you.
And I also will say that, the long-range planning task force, what is it, 2040? It's 2040, right? Except
It's now
it's,
been
is it 20?
indefinitely postponed, yes.
I know, but I mean, like, it's taken so long. We had 2040. By the time we have it, it's gonna be the 2050 plan. But anyway, yes, the 2040 plan, that was, that came up so multiple times. And so I don't want, members of the public to think that, it's just been a small thing buried within your department. It has come up in lots of public forums, and unfortunately, that effort's been stalled, but that was front and center, public art in general, so.
I'll say it is on our radar for the department as a possible work item for the next year. There was one meeting where one particular planning commission member did ask what the status was. So I think there is some interest on the planning commission for opening that dialogue up again.
Okay.
Thank you.
Contact your planning commission people.
So are you gonna read them?
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so these are the, is that okay, Drew?
Yeah,
Good with that?
it does, I mean, if we want to read through them, that's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah, so these are the criteria that every single item that comes before the Board of Zoning Adjustment has to meet, or has to be weighed against. And so I'm just going to read this first one. The granting of the variance shall be in harmony with the general purpose and intent of the regulations imposed by this ordinance on the district in which it is located, and shall not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public welfare. I don't feel like this is injurious or detrimental or out of harmony by the intent and general purpose of the regulations imposed by the zoning ordinance. That's my opinion. So, anyone else have anything to say about that? The granting of the variance will not permit the establishment of any use which is not permitted in the district. Here we get to an issue. Well, there's no use. There's, as in, use of the property in terms of whether it's, you're not a retail establishment trying to go in a residential neighborhood. But in terms of the mural itself, that's where it becomes dicey, since there is that.
Mr. Chairman, just out of curiosity, as you're going through these, I wanted to ask, would you like any feedback from staff? I know you have the information in your report, or if you want me to wait till the end, if you want to, just asking how you'd want to address that.
Yeah, I think you can, I mean, I think at the end you can. I mean, I think I think Frost wants clarity and clarification for those who are not as familiar with what we do and why, that we're not
Sure.
anti-mural, that we're merely following kind of a
It's not an art band.
somewhat rigid list, and there is gray area in what we do, and this one
There is a gray area.
doesn't fall much within the gray, and I think that's what we all would like, is a little clarity there.
So to me, this is the tooth of the argument against it, and that's just simply that section 907 rather, section 907.03.b prohibits murals specifically in this area. So that's why we're all here. Part C, there must be proof of unique circumstances. There must exist special circumstances or conditions fully described in the findings applicable to the land or buildings for which the variance is sought, which circumstances or conditions are peculiar to such land or buildings and do not apply generally to lands or buildings in the district, and which circumstances or conditions are such that the strict application of the provisions of this ordinance would deprive the applicant of the reasonable use of such land or buildings. Now, the city is saying that there are no unique circumstances related to this building or this land. And then it references the mural, when the ordinance against murals was created, which is 2010. There must be proof, here's the next one, letter D, there must be proof of unnecessary hardship. It is not sufficient proof of hardship to show that greater profit would result if the variance were granted. Furthermore, the hardship complained of cannot be self-created, nor can it be established on the basis by one who purchases with or without knowledge of the restrictions. It must result from the application of this ordinance. It must be suffered directly by the property in question, and evidence of other variances granted under similar circumstances shall not be considered. So staff says there's no proof of unnecessary hardship. Correct. The applicant is correct in that there's no advertising of any business within the mural. However, murals are currently prohibited, et cetera, et cetera. Almost last one. the granting of the variance is necessary for the reasonable use of the land or building, and that if we grant this variance, and that the variance as granted by the Board of Zoning Adjustment is the minimum variance that will accomplish this purpose. So, we're not inhibiting the reasonable use of the land or building, by having no, an ordinance that bans the murals, or not bans, but doesn't allow them. The proposed variance will not impair an adequate supply of light and air, increase congestion, increase danger, endanger the public safety, et cetera, et cetera. We know that it will, I think we all agree it won't do that. And finally, that the granting of the variance requested won't confer on the applicant any special privilege that's denied by the ordinance to other lands, structures, or buildings in the same district. I feel like that is, well, first of all, we always consider all variances on a case-by-case basis. So even if there is a similar circumstance right next door, or an identical, or a completely different circumstance right next door, we don't assume that what happens with one applicant is the same exact thing that's happening with another applicant, and we don't want to create precedents for going forward. That's not our job, that's someone else's. So I hope that helps you understand the specific portion of the ordinance that we're reacting to. And also, I hope that you see that we all really like murals. Did you have any comments, Mr. Flood?
No, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
I will make a motion to deny PL 2021007776.
I'll second. Drew Goodner,
Yes.
Ross Rollins. Amy Sorrells.
No.
Marty Heffron,
No.
Mary Boyd. Sorry,
Letitia.
That's okay.
it was mixed up in my paper.
Yes.
The application,
Application is
Failed.
denied.
yeah.
All right. New business, BZ 2022-022-002.
Hello. This is a variance request to allow a miniature horse on a property that is less than the minimum 2 acres that is required. Section 501 of the code states that, that to have a horse, you need to be outside of the stock district, which they are, but the lot has to be 2 acres or more with a limit of 1 horse per acre. The requested variance is to allow a miniature horse to remain on a property that is 0.45 acres. The address of that is 321 St. James Drive, and that is in the Wrights Mill Estate subdivision. That is in the Neighborhood Conservation District in C20, and that surrounding area is all the same zoning except to the south, which is in C26, so not too different. The applicant has stated that the miniature horse is her family member's assistance animal for a disability. The intent of the minimum lot size is to alleviate any potential impacts from livestock animals, which a horse is considered. So reducing that lot size would not be in harmony with the intent and could be detrimental to the neighborhood. Approval of the variance would allow a use that is not otherwise permitted and would give special privilege to one property owner that would not be permitted to others in that same zoning district and area. There are no unique or special circumstances in regards to the building and the land, and denial would not deprive them of reasonable use of the property. It would still be a single-family home, even if denied. Staff did not find any evidence of an unnecessary hardship. As you know, that's well defined on what constitutes that. Staff received a complaint, and that is how we found out about the miniature horse on the property where the lot size was too small. A neighbor had called and complained about the smell and the runoff of manure into a creek or a little stream possibly behind the house. Other than that, no one else has called to discuss it. There was one letter in the packet in favor of allowing this variance. Again, let's see. That variance could have an impact on the quality of air based on that complaint, but it would not increase congestion or endanger safety. And then denial would not deprive them of the rights enjoyed by other property owners in that same area. They all still are single-family homes, but approval would give them special privileges. Based on just looking at those criteria, staff does recommend denial because it does not meet any of them. But the burden of proof is on the applicant, and everything that was given by the applicant was provided in the packets. And the applicant, I don't want to identify the person if they don't want to come up and talk or not, but I'll let them decide that.
Thank you. Where is I know the 2 acre, where is the stock district?
It's on a map.
Okay,
It's
but this area is not in the
It
stock
is out,
district?
it is outside of the stock
Okay,
district.
so even if this was 2 acres,
If it was 2 acres, it would be fine.
okay, but if it was within the stock district and
Then it
less
would
than
not be
2,
fine.
then it's fine. Okay,
If it's inside the stock district,
right,
but this is outside, so that part's good, but the lot size is not
All
good.
right,
So
that's what I
it
thought.
met one of 2.
thank you.
Any questions?
So the zone, that's the zoning ordinance, how do they define a horse? Like they decide size of horse?
It's a livestock animal and that's it. It's not defined by height, breed, any of the animals. They're just goats, horses.
So it's not necessarily that it's a horse, it's livestock is the category?
Horses are specifically called out.
Okay.
Horses have that minimum 2 acre with 1 horse per acre.
Okay.
That is specifically in there, but it is considered a livestock animal, which
Are
is why I
other-
use that term.
Are other livestock animals permitted?
Not that I'm aware of. Not-
Chickens are,
Chickens, yes.
Chickens, yes.
Yes.
with a permit.
Livestock, that one.
But not a goat.
Four-legged livestock.
Because, the Americans Disability Act, they identify miniature horses as service animals.
Correct.
Is this a registered service? That's my
I have
question. Is this a
no
registered
proof of
service?
that. Everything I was given, I gave to you
Okay.
all.
Because that's where my question would be, is where does variance fall under ADA? Like if ADA is a federal, you're protected with
This
that.
was their recommended path to start here.
Okay,
Thank you.
This was whose recommended path?
the applicant.
Applicant.
Okay, the applicant. But to that point, do we know the answer to that question? So,
Which question?
so when we're talking about the Disabilities Act, and we know that we're all expected to make reasonable accommodations. So I'm just wondering, so,
There's very specific definitions,
Okay.
and I'm looking at this just in terms of a variance. So for me to get into the Fair Housing Act and the ADA and then the DOJ's definition, I don't want to overstep. I
And
just wanted to.
Fair housing, I think, covers rentals, not ownership. Is that right?
It could even cover dorm rooms. It covers.
Yeah, but I don't,
Pretty much any,
It covers any kind of
it's gonna
home
trump
structure.
any HOA or anything like that.
Mr. Chairman, similar to the last request we had where we had concerns about University of Auburn and sort of parallel issues or concerns that might be out there. Yeah, when staff addressed this, we addressed it purely from a zoning standpoint. As was mentioned in your report, in addition to looking at the zoning rules and the criteria that we just went through in the last request, there was no information given to us as well that would address the issue of, a horse being something that's not permitted in that district, for instance, unless you have 2 acres. Why it would have to be a horse versus some other type of animal that could be considered a support type of animal. And so there are other types of animals, but we didn't receive any information on why that would be necessary.
Thank you. All right, thank you.
Okay.
If the applicant is here and would like to speak, can come up. If you'll sign in and then state your name for us, please. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Staff Attorney Lonnie Williams. I'm with the Alabama Disabilities Advocacy Program. Every state and territory in the nation has a protection and advocacy agency for people with disabilities. It's federally mandated, and so we're that agency for the state of Alabama. Ms. Kim Hobbs asked me to be here today on behalf of these owners. Ms. Hobbs works for the Central Alabama Fair Housing Center. But she's 9 months pregnant and could not be here today. Susan Smith is the property owner. Ms. Smith is attending to some medical needs in Houston, and that's why she can't be here. But the person with disabilities, the owner of the horse, Lauren Smith, is here. Lauren is a senior at the university. She's about to enter grad school. The animal in question that we're talking about, just to kind of give you a better understanding of the kind of animal we're talking about. It's the same size as a large breed dog. It's 180 pounds, 17% the size of a standard horse. I could probably carry this horse a lot easier than it could carry me. Or that's the kind of animal we're talking about. So there's really no difference between having this horse versus having a dog this large, from a factual common sense perspective. And so I just wanted to say that. There's only been one complaint about this horse, and it was from a long time ago. It wasn't recent. There haven't been any other complaints. In fact, there's been a letter of support. But all those common sense things aside, the position of the variance request is that that the animal is a miniature horse, and there is questionable as to whether or not it should be treated the same as a horse. But and it's a horse that's 17% the size of a regular horse, and it doesn't really need 2 acres, and this is a half acre lot. But beyond all that, the law in question is mainly not Americans with Disabilities Act, that does have some application, but mainly the Federal Fair Housing Act. So when cities when cities have zoning ordinances, when there's land use ordinances, those have to be applied and administered in cooperation with the Federal Fair Housing Act. The owner and her daughter cannot use this as a single-family dwelling because on the same basis as other people, because she needs an assistance animal in order to be able to live at this property. The daughter does, and so she would be excluded on the basis of disability. In other words, she would be prohibited on the basis of disability. She would be the victim of discrimination on the basis of disability, which is prohibited by the Federal Fair Housing Act. which applies to any dwelling situation, any kind of real estate situation, any kind of transaction, any kind of application of land use, all of those. It does not apply to things like hotels and such, but any kind of dwelling. What the Federal Fair Housing Act requires is that if you need a reasonable accommodation of policies and practices, such as allowing an assistance animal where you ordinarily wouldn't allow one, then that has to be granted if it's required in order to enable the person with a disability to use and enjoy the dwelling on an equal basis with others. And now this is this is not just a request for a variance. It's a request that she be allowed to use an assistance animal in compliance with the Fair Housing Act. It's not just a request for a variance, it's a request for a reasonable accommodation as required by the Federal Fair Housing Act. Now, this is not a situation, and
Sorry.
Amber Alert, I assume.
Yeah.
Dangerous person?
Dangerous person.
An officer was injured.
How do you make it stop?
With an Opelika police officer.
Continue, sorry.
so she's, the question came up about, okay, she's an animal sciences major. She's more comfortable with horses, okay? And so that's why this particular kind of animal, which as we've discussed, is not that different from, from a dog in terms of size, in terms of land needed. Also, we're all familiar with situations in which people fake a disability in order to get in under the radar to get things. You know, they go online, they get letters from therapists, they buy a fake vest, and they find ways to, to bypass perfectly reasonable regulations. So we're familiar with that, and nobody likes that kind of abuse. This is not that situation. She has a letter on file from her doctor at Auburn Family Medicine, Dr. James Gauthier, I think is how it's pronounced. But he certifies that this is what's needed and if she doesn't have this, then she's not going to get a reduction in her symptoms. She's not going to get a relief from her anxiety. She's not going to have that. So that's going, without relief from those symptoms, is going to make it excruciating for her to live on this property without this animal that she's had since November of 2020. So she's had the animal since August of 2020, and the animal's been on the property since November of 2020, and this is the one and only complaint. I don't know, the genesis of the complaint, but it's no greater imposition than a dog would be. Nobody else is going to be able to use this situation to say, well, she has this, so therefore I can have that. I'm not going to get into whether we'd have the same problem if this were a pot-bellied pig. I don't know. But with that said, she's available if anybody would like to talk to her. If there's any other questions that I could ask, but the crux of the issue is that it's our position that this is that she has met all the requirements under the Federal Fair Housing Act to be granted this variance as a reasonable accommodation for her disability. And I think she's met all of y'all's standards for the granting of variances, if you look at them closely enough with the facts that I provided. I think she's met all those requirements as well.
I do have a question, if you don't mind. Have you represented folks in other cities on similar things? And if so, Are they seeking variances, or was there some other legal method of seeking an accommodation?
The usual method is a request of variance
Okay.
as a reasonable modification. That's the process by which you utilize the city's method for getting a reasonable accommodation, and that's always done through the variance process. For instance, what we usually attend these hearings for deals with group homes usually, and not this kind of issues. Sometimes it deals with wheelchair ramps or awnings for wheelchair ramps, or setbacks and things like that. Most often it deals with placement of group homes, and in all those contexts, that's the appropriate avenue, and not just here, but in the practice. That's the way that it's done, is you seek a variance as the reasonable accommodation. Most of the times what we see is people find out that a group home is moving into an area, and there may be 3 people with intellectual disabilities, and they're going to have a few staff there, and people start to make up scenarios in their mind and think that those people did something wrong in order to have to live in a house, when really they just need staff and a place to live, and they don't change the character in the neighborhood, they don't cause any trouble, but sometimes citizens say, well, that's odd, I don't like that, and come out against it. And so sometimes we have to appear at bodies like this, and request variances for people. Thank you.
Thank you. Laura, do you want to speak? You don't have to. It's up to you. Okay.
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Good. How are you?
I'd like to apologize for my mom not being here. She is having surgery in Houston on Friday after a pretty detrimental car accident, so she won't be able to be here for a while. But I'd like to introduce you to Sven. He is my miniature horse, and the reason, I'm sure you guys have many questions about the situation, even though if you might not like to say those questions out loud, so I'm just gonna explain as much as I can to kind of ensure that curiosity. But the reason I have a horse instead of a dog for an assistance animal is because it is a parasympathetic nervous system disorder, and his job is to apply pressure to my aorta, my jugular artery right here, and it actually suppresses the parasympathetic. So I can, as you can tell, I'm a little shaky. It does suppress everything. I've tried medications that have actually caused me to downfall in school, which is a big problem for me, because my career goal, my life goal, for graduate school is to go into ruminant nutrition, and as an agricultural problem, we are experiencing a growth in population, and this growth in population is becoming detrimental in a lot of areas, and unfortunately a lot of our agricultural resources are being developed on, and we're losing agricultural resources, we're losing food resources. With a growing population, less food, it's my job to figure out how can I produce beef more efficiently so that we can provide food to our this population that hopefully will reach a peak in 2070, but we'll see. So anyways, that's why I have an assistance animal. He allows me to continue on this path, allows me to eventually hopefully help our population. About the complaint. So the complaint was actually about a potential problem, not a current problem. He was complaining about that manure could have the possibility of traveling downstream an acre, which runs by our house. It's a dried up, actually, creek bed. It does not fill with water unless it has heavily rained. So also he weighs 180 pounds. He produces about maybe 2 pounds of manure per day, which I do regularly clean up. I have a trash can system. I package up the manure into a trash bag and I haul it off. and it is reused for compost, it is reused for lots of things. So manure is removed from the property on a either day-to-day basis or every other day basis, so there is no potential problem for manure to be running off, even by the composition of manure, which is 80% grass. I would be surprised if it survived in water through over an acre. That's just my opinion. And I think that's kind of all I can provide. Oh, I have a new neighbor now. So the letter of support is from my neighbor to the west. They absolutely love Sven. The day I brought him home, they came running out, super excited to see him. Their 2-year-old granddaughter absolutely loves him. And then I just had a new neighbor move in to the east of me who is also, I was not able to get a letter of support from him, but he is in support of him being there. So the only issue is with a neighbor whose property does not actually touch our property line and is an acre behind, at least an acre behind me through heavily wooded area. So I would just like to, I mean, I understand your guys' position. You have to follow the guidelines. You have to say yes or no, whether it meets those criteria, but I would just like to have that stated for city council, that those are my explanations, and even if they do not want to ask those questions out loud, they hopefully were answered. If there's anything else.
Thank you, and thank you for speaking. All right, open the public hearing. If anyone wants to speak in support or against the application? Don't see anyone. Close the public hearing and open up to the board for discussion and/or a motion.
I have like a procedural question. So variances typically run with the land. In this case, it would be running with the human, right? How could that be accomplished?
Well, you're right. Variances generally run with the land. Now, our city attorney's here, so mere fact that this is a different kind of variance, I don't know that it changes the nature of the law as it applies to variances. I would think it would still run with the land, unless he wants to give you a different position on that.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And if we could condition it, if it were approved, if it was conditioned upon something.
While they
What would
occupy
that
the home?
condition be?
Correct. Yeah. But,
In this particular,
It would have to be for this animal, not that, like a large size. I feel like if we made a variance for the land, it would allow,
The subject horse that you're looking at on the screen.
yeah,
correct.
only Sven.
go ahead.
Yes, I'm Stephen Clay. I know a lot of y'all don't know who I am because we rarely have to come to these meetings. But yes, Mr. Williams was basically right. This is a little bit of a unique situation in that we do have some federal law at play, the Fair Housing Act, that does require us to do a little bit of a different analysis. But the courts have held that the variance process is the appropriate way for a city to go about considering these requests. Without getting too much into the facts, y'all got all those in front of you. I was just going to provide you with some questions that HUD has provided as a kind of a guide for you to ask when assessing these types of requests. The first one is, has the applicant requesting the accommodation provided information that reasonably supports the person seeking the accommodation has a disability? And then the next question is, has the person requesting the accommodation provided information which reasonably supports that the animal, in this case, provides therapeutic or emotional support with respect to the individual's disability? And then the next question is to ask, is the animal commonly kept in households? And if the answer to that question is no, then you next look at, well, has the requester demonstrated the disability-related therapeutic need for the specific animal in question? So those are kind of some of the issues that HUD has said you can look at in terms of evaluating this type of a request.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think after he read that she has met most, if not all of those. And the question of, is it commonly kept? I think she did explain why this animal was chosen, at least to me.
I agree.
I agree with Morgan's report and that this doesn't meet the typical variance criteria, but I also think that the Fair Housing Act trumps
Trumps that,
Auburn's
yeah.
city
Yeah.
ordinances. So.
As a realtor, I'm not going on record against the fair housing. It's like, I'm not trying to lose my license, so.
Steve, is it possible to condition it upon her occupying this particular home and this particular animal?
You know, in my experience, I have seen boards of adjustment, apply reasonable conditions to a variance request. And I have, although I don't know what has been typical in the city of Auburn, but in other locations where I've worked, I have seen an occasion where variance was approved subject to sort of time limit or something like that. I doubt you've ever had that happen in Auburn.
Well, and the reasonable accommodation, when you get a service animal, it is specific to that animal. So it's not, it doesn't encompass like, and I don't think
Yeah,
she would, but she can't go out and get 6 more animals.
Yeah, you're evaluating the specific request and the
Correct.
specific animal at the specific location.
Right.
So if circumstances were to change, potentially there would have to be a new request.
Right.
We would just condition it on this individual, this animal as presented.
I think you could do that, yes.
This one animal.
Does the animal live in the house most of the time?
He is able to come indoors. I have special boots for him for being on hardwood floors. He doesn't slip, and he has a poop bag that I wrap around his tail so that so if I do take him somewhere that there's no chance of spreading manure. But
I mean, if like a neighbor, let's say someone's at the neighbor's house on their deck having a little party and they constantly hearing a horse or making a bunch of noise, if you hear a dog, you can, the neighbor could take the dog in the house.
yes, I could bring him inside if
Okay.
there was like you said,
Okay.
event going on next door and they would not like him out there.
And the horse does have a paddock, right?
Yes, he is fenced in. He is reasonable fenced in size and has plenty of room. Like he's 180 pounds. He's almost as big as my labs.
I mean, like a horse, the other thing is like, let's say you're next door, or you're out on your back porch again drinking coffee, and you hear constant galloping going on next door. It's like, that's kind of not that interesting to be around, maybe if you didn't like horses or something, versus a dog. You really won't hear a dog running around much, you know what I mean?
Dog bark all over.
What kind of dogs do you have?
My neighbors that are in close enough proximity to even hear him are in support of him being there.
Okay.
I make a motion to approve
Could
conditional
we
on.
add a condition to that? Just, I'm perfectly happy with the decision you all are looking at making, but condition on just the maintenance, if there's any future complaints, just that she address those, if it's manure, if water and mosquitoes, if there's water out, just anything like that, just that she would address the nuisance complaints and upkeep with the animal.
How long have you had the animal?
I rescued him in August of 2020, and then when he was old enough to be moved to the home, I moved him to the home in November of 2020. So
Okay, so he's been there for
Year and a
a
half.
year.
And so he's maximum size now?
completely maximum. He's also fixed. He is pretty well trained. He can come to me when I need him. He doesn't cause any trouble.
Continue.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I make a motion to, thank you, approve, wait,
Easy. Yeah, it's not,
name that thing? That also
Yeah.
happens to be like the
This-
date.
PL,
it's right.
PL
This is
2022.
No, that's it.
The case numbers
I'll
look
make
a
a
little
motion
different.
I'll make a motion to approve, is it PL or BZ? We've got,
We have BZ on our thing.
The case numbers are different, so BZ is correct.
okay, because it says PL on the top of that one.
Because that's old business from 2021. So are we going to BZ now? That's
I will
what we're
make
doing?
a motion to approve BZ 2022-002, conditioned on Miss Lauren Smith occupying the residence and it being this specific horse, and that she agrees to comply with any cleanup and maintenance and address any complaints from neighbors.
Second.
Drew Goodner,
Yes.
Ross Rollins,
Yes.
Amy Sorrells,
Yes.
Kim White,
Yes.
Marty Heffern.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'd just like to say, related to these issues where it's, it could go one way or another, and it's hard for us to not make up our minds, but we really need an abundance of evidence from all sides, and input from staff. That this has just been a lovely experience, and I feel like it was really thorough, and everyone did a great job of representing themselves, which I think helps, anyone who comes forward with this sort of request.
Yep. Y'all did do a very great and thorough job.
Yep, I
So
agree.
we don't always get that, and so it happens. And your variance was approved. All right. Other business. We've got election of officers. So in the past, every February, we elect a chairman and then a vice chairman. The chairman runs the meeting, and then the vice chairman runs the meeting in the event that the chairman is absent. So we need any discussion on it, and a nomination for a chairman, and then a nomination for a vice chairman, and a vote.
Are you interested in being chair again?
Yep, I'll continue if that's what y'all would like. Happy to do it.
Nominate Drew Goodner for chair.
I
Second.
second.
Are you gonna kill me if I nominate you for vice chair?
That's fine.
Okay, I nominate Kimberly White for vice chair.
We vote on them separately.
It would probably be easier, although I think you're probably going to agree, yes.
Yeah. We might not. Kim's tough. All right, let's vote on chair first.
Drew Goodner,
Yes.
Ross Rollins.
Yes.
Amy Sorrells.
Yes.
Kim White.
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
Sure.
Just switch it up.
All right, and then I think there was a motion for, Amy, did you make a
Yeah,
motion?
I made a motion to nominate Kimberly White for, is it vice chair, is that what we call it?
Vice chair, yep.
Okay.
And I'll second that.
Drew Goodner,
Yes.
Ross Rollins.
Yes.
Amy Sorrells.
Yes.
Kim White.
Yes.
Marty Heffron.
Yes.
Be funny if I voted no, huh?
You could have.
It still passed, so usually it's
True.
All right. Thank everyone for being here. Thank you, staff, and
Welcome
for
our new members. too.
the new members. Yeah, we've got Marty Heffron, Mary Boyd. So they kind of gave them a brief overview earlier, but some of us have been here.
These were
Kim, you and I
doozy.
both been
Usually
here
they're
a
not
long
nearly
time.
this interesting.
And Frost, you've been
They're
here a
not,
long time.
not this,